All right, everybody, thanks for joining in. We are covering a recent movie again this episode, and it's actually, I'm kind of surprised we're on a kind of a little bit of a roll here where we haven't covered anything related to Shudder in the past few episodes. When we were on quite the roll there for a while, I think we were 4, 5, 6 movies or something like that, where we covered not necessarily Shudder exclusive stuff, but stuff that we'd watched off of Shudder. But this episode, we are covering I think it's maybe an exclusive to Netflix. I'm not quite sure. I think that's the only place you can find it right now, at least when it comes to streaming. It might be like on some, pay video on demand services somewhere. I'm not sure. But in this one, it's a 2016 movie, but I don't think it actually came out until 2018. So that even makes it newer than 2016. But we were talking about 2016's Terrifier.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this is definitely a lower budget film. So I think it did go straight to streaming, whether it was Netflix or whatever, if that's the only place, I'm not sure. It is a Dread Central film. Now, I don't know much about Dread Central, but I know that I used to go on the Dread Central website. They had a lot of horror movie news, interviews, and that kind of thing. So I'm assuming that it's probably something similar to a Fangoria film, where it's more low budget, very much focused on horror. Yeah, this was definitely not something that was released in theaters.
I don't know, it's kind of cool. I mean, not that we were going to see horror movies back in the 80s and stuff when they were coming out all the time, but yeah, you have all the big name stuff that does come out every once in a while, and every once in a while you get something good that does come out, for example, like the It movies, at least the first one was pretty good, but man, it's hard to compete sometimes with this low budget stuff that goes direct to video, or anymore it gets picked up by Netflix or even Shudder or Hulu or something. Some of these straight to streaming movies are great, especially when it comes to horror movies. It gives you exactly what you're looking for. You go see some of this crap in the movie theaters anymore, and it might scare the teenage girl enough to where the guy who took her to see the movie gets an extra cuddle in, or, you might get lucky and con your wife into going to see whatever, the Quiet Place or something, and she gets a little spooked and you get a little extra ooh, out of it. But man, some of these independent underground movies and this is a good example of that, where, kind of gets a buzz, and, we're kind of late to the party, I think, on this one, but I know last year this one had quite a bit of a buzz on it, and you watch it and you're like, yep, that is a horror movie right there.
Yeah, should we kind of give a little rundown of what it's about?
It's actually, this is actually a perfect thing. There's really two components to this movie. So the movie starts off with this kind of some sort of talk show host lady, almost like a Sally Jesse Raphael kind of character, doing this. I don't know if it's supposed to be a nighttime news or whatever, but anyway, she's interviewing the survivor of a massacre, and she just woke up from a coma, and the massacre was happened a year before that, and then flash forward, or however you want to say it, then it jumps after the interview to Halloween night, and you have these two drunk chicks, and they're trying to get home, and then all of a sudden there's this clown character, and all hell breaks loose.
So yeah, we've got these two chicks, and one of them, I think the main one would be the Nev Campbell wannabe chick. I don't know. I noticed her either Nev Campbell / Courtney Cox. Did you kind of get that vibe from her?
I did not get either one of those vibes from her.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, I was thinking this is okay. That's where they're going with this. Yeah, so kind of this, they're both kind of sloshed, and they need to get home, and there's this weird, goofy, creepy clown guy that's like, following them and watching them from around the corner and all of that.
Yeah, and this movie is one of those where we I don't know, we probably sound like we contradict ourselves every once in a while, because when we're talking about the Ghoulies movies and you're talking like Ghoulies 2 and the Ghoulies are just there out of nowhere and you're like, whoa, where'd the Ghoulies come from? But now in this movie you have Art the Clown, and there's like zero explanation about where he came from or who he is or anything. He's just there.
Right.
And it works. You're like, all right, cool. There's this creepy clown guy. And so sometimes, some scenarios you're like, all right, this is perfect. I don't really need to know much background on this. Let's just go with it and let's just have, good old gore fest. And this movie is a gore fest, which is kind of weird because there's not a lot of kills in this movie. There's 4 or 5 maybe? But man, they are brutal.
They are extremely brutal. Yeah, starting with the first part is the girls go into a cafe and they kind of hang out there, and the clown goes in there, and there's an owner, and then there's also a guy that works for him, and both those guys get it. And spoiler alert, sorry, but those are pretty brutal kills, and and then there's obviously it just goes from there.
This movie really, really kind of teeters on the edge of, with the kills anyway, almost like to the whole torture porn kind of horror genre with it. There is one kill in particular that is very graphic and very brutal.
Very, yeah. It's very bad. Yeah, it's the one. I'll let you say it.
Well, I mean, if you ever want to see what it looks like when somebody gets sawed in half
with a what kind of saw is that again?
With a hacksaw.
Hacksaw, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it is definitely pretty brutal. I don't know how realistic it is, but
it kind of goes along the lines of like brutal in terms of the Mutilator brutal, because it's the same sort of same sort of kind of kill basically. It's like let's go from the crotch down and just. I mean, it takes it even further, but this movie, this is a full-on gore fest film. This is, not, again, I think we talked about it too in the past, how there's a lot of these modern films nowadays that are going back to the practical effects. And even with this film, I kind of had that feeling that, it's like whoever the effects team is, it's always like nowadays they're using the same materials, because even going back to that brutal kill that you just talked about, it very much feels like, or seemed like they were using the same, whatever the fake blood and the rubber latex or whatever they were to pull that off. It's the same thing I think of reminded me of the way they do the gore in the remake of Evil Dead and everything else that's been coming out recently.
Yeah, like we said before, I still think, everybody gets the same stuff from the same place anymore.
That's it.
There's probably one guy somewhere sitting on a cash, a big pile of cash, thinking, "Man, this recipe I came up for, this fake blood stuff is paying off. It's awesome."
Right. Yeah, it's like you said, like the kind of the torture porn thing. So basically, there's this clown. It's after them. It's they get into this old building, and before you know it, the main girl, she's trying to get away. And
yeah, and this movie too, it's kind of the way that they do it with all of the stuff. And I mean, we kind of already spoiled some of the movie. If you haven't seen it yet, now's a good time to stop. But this movie, they really just kind of go full force, and the people that you think are going to be like the final girl or whatever in it, the two friends who are kind of stranded at the beginning of the movie, and then you're kind of following them around, and one of them gets killed, and then you have the other one, and you're like, hey, she's gonna make it. Nope, she gets killed right away. And then so then you're trying to figure out like, oh, what's gonna happen with this,
right?
And then it's very brutal. The one complaint I do have about this movie, and I wonder how you feel about this, because there was a discussion about this somewhere else. It's the fact that Art the Clown, during the one kill particularly, he pulls out a handgun and like shoots the girl. And he ends up shooting her like whatever, 12 times or something ridiculous.
Right.
I don't know, it's kind of weird. I almost felt like kind of was like a cop-out using a gun for the killer in this. And I mean, I know like, you know, Dr. Loomis in Halloween had a handgun and it got used quite a bit.
That's our John Carpenter segue, by the way.
But, you know, and then you had Halloween 4, of course, at the end of that where, you know, Michael Myers is shot up by an entire army of guns. But I don't know. To me, the killer in the movie using a gun is kind of a cop-out, especially in a movie like this.
Well, to me, it actually kind of made sense. And I kind of saw it as like it just showed how brutal this guy actually was. And like he was always in control no matter what. I mean, he knew like he might end up in a situation where he would need it. So he had it.
Yeah,
and I think
like a last-ditch effort kind of thing.
Yeah. I think that just kind of showed how this guy was to the hilt, had everything kind of planned out. I'm going to there might be a time when I might need this, and that's what I'm going to use. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely like you had mentioned, a gore fest, and this film is definitely not for the faint of heart. It's a pretty extreme movie too. I mean, like kind of like you said, the whole torture porn thing. It kind of falls along that line very, very much so. I mean, I could see a lot of Saw influenced here, even Hostel a little bit. It just had that sort of like let's go for the jugular and show you everything.
Yeah, it really did, and it's again goes back to the whole like independent. Well, I shouldn't say independent. Maybe it's not the right word anymore. I think that if you say independent movie anymore, I think people are always thinking of like these Hollywood stars making these low budget movies anymore, trying to get their Oscar.
Right.
But you know, these low budget horror movies that end up getting picked up by whatever, you know, Netflix, or you just go straight to video or something.
Right.
That a lot of the times these guys know anymore, like, oh well, this movie's going straight to video, so it doesn't matter if it gets a rating or not. So I'm just going to go overboard with this and see what I can get away with, and then see if a distributor picks it up, if they tell me if I got to cut something out of it or not.
Right.
There is this movie kind of, you had mentioned how it kind of had sort of Hostel or Saw influences in it. There's a scene towards the end of the movie, which to me kind of was like an homage to, well, Texas Chainsaw Massacre a little bit, but even Sleepaway Camp. But again, it was like, let's see how far I can take this. And you had a scene towards the end of the movie where the main killer had skinned a woman.
Oh, yeah.
But it was actually like wearing her like breasts like over his skin as part of a decoy. But
Right.
then is like prancing around as part of the scene, like, you know, in this like wearing like her flesh, and you're just like, ugh.
Yeah, it was a pretty disturbing scene. Absolutely. Kind of almost like Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, kind of even that a little bit. But again, it just kind of it's one of those things where you're just like, okay, so I get it. You're making this movie, and in your mind, you're just like, oh, I got this idea. Oh, well, let's see if we can get away with it.
Right. No, yeah, you're absolutely right. It was a lot of stuff like that throughout this whole film, and clearly they got away with all of it. Another thing I wanted to mention, too, was probably one of the things that stood out the most for me, that I thought was really well done, and was the soundtrack. And it actually had sort of like a low-budget indie horror type of soundtrack. I don't know. It reminded me of like some of the things I used to watch when I was like little. Like I think we've talked a little bit about this, but like I used to watch this show called Saturday Nightmares on USA Network back in the mid-late 80s, and they'd play horror movies, and they show these little short horror films, and you know, they had these very low budget, so they had to come up with a soundtrack, and it was a lot of kind of noise and these weird little atmospheric sounds, and I think that this film did a good job with that. I really liked that. I appreciated pretty quickly.
You know, I'm going to be honest with you. I did not notice the soundtrack in this.
Well, yeah, it's just like, kind of like synth sounds, basically. It's sort
Yeah.
of nothing real elaborate, no melody or anything like that. Just kind of played with the tone. Another thing I wanted to mention too, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but like after I watched the film, I was digging through. I don't know if I was on Shudder or Amazon or something, and that clown popped up again in in a different movie. I'm like, is that the same thing? Is that the same guy? And so apparently, I did a little looking into this, and apparently Terrifier is connected to the anthology film All Hallows Eve, and this clown is in there as well.
Oh, yeah. I kind of had read something about that before. And I don't remember. I was trying to think back if I'd actually ever seen that movie before. But I don't think I did, because I know that there was something along the same similar name of a movie that Daniel Harris was part of at one point, and I don't think it was that one. I think it was something else. Again, this is Horror Heads, and we do zero research for the episode. So, but yeah, that's cool. I'll have to check that movie out at some point too. And like I said before, this is one of those movies where I know there was a lot of chatter about this last year, and I will say this, and I should know better by now. There was a lot of chatter about this movie, and then one person had said to me, like, oh, Terrifier wasn't good, don't watch it. And so then I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, really?
I guess I won't watch it then. And then in the process of picking a movie for this episode, because we had just recently gotten done recording our 200th episode, and in that episode we were talking about, some of the worst episodes that some of the worst movies that we've covered, and we were talking about the movie Zombies in that episode. And so the movie, and I won't even say the name of the movie, but the movie that I had originally picked for this is a movie that is currently getting some chatter out there, and I started that movie, and I made it like 15 minutes into that movie, and I was like, man, this is horrible. I don't want to watch this. It was like a Friday night. It was, a similar situation what we've talked about before. I'd been working all week, was home, relaxing, had a nice cold beer. I was like, you know what? I want to enjoy whatever I'm going to watch right now. Right. And I had already texted you and said, hey, we're going to do this. And you're like, cool. And then I texted you and said, you know what? We're not doing that. I'm vetoing myself on this one. And so then I clicked open on Netflix, and Terrifier was on the front page, and I was like, you know what? Let me give this one a shot. And I got a couple minutes into it, and I was like, oh, this might be kind of interesting. So I texted you again and said, hey, let's do Terrifier. And man, that movie, one of those movies that just sucks you in, and then before you know it's over. You're like, whoa. But it's all, again, it's very, it's very gory. It's very on the cusp of torture porn. So if that is not your scene, then you are not going to enjoy this movie. Even if you are a horror fan, because I know a couple of people that are horror fans that don't like this kind of stuff. The stuff that's straight up gore. And this movie kind of is there's really not much of a plot to this movie at all. It's just, again, kind of goes back to that not knowing anything about anything with the movie, and just, there's this clown, and, yep, he's killing people. And right. I actually kind of wish they would have left out the very opening scene to this, and even the end of this movie, and just had it be just the clown killing these people, and then it's over. I think that would have actually added a little bit to it. But of course, then you don't leave it open for sequels and all that stuff.
Right. No, yeah, I hear you.
Rumor has it, too, that the filming for the sequel has probably already been done. So we're probably going to be seeing a sequel to this. It's, what is it, June 2019? So it wouldn't surprise me if we see a sequel to this yet this year or early next year. But you never know. I mean, look at Wolf Cop. When we did Wolf Cop in 2015, and they were saying Wolf Cop 2 is coming out 2015, and then we didn't get it till 2018. So
Took a while.
you never know. Even these independent movies take a while to get out.
Absolutely. So how are you going to rate this one?
Well, I'll go ahead and give Terrifier. I'll give this one a thumbs up for sure. This one, and I watched this one just a couple of weeks ago, and I've already watched it again. Seen it a couple of times already. This movie is definitely, it's entertaining and it keeps your attention, but it's not for the faint of heart at all. If you have even the slightest bit of a weak stomach, then you probably need to stay away from this, because there's a couple of scenes in this movie that just makes you go, ugh. And not just the whole woman getting sawed in half thing either. There's a couple of things where, getting shot in the face, getting a scalpel in the top of the head, getting a scalpel in the face, and you're like, ugh.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go ahead and I kind of was on the fence on this one. I didn't know how to rate it exactly. But I think at the end of the day, I'm going to have to go with a thumbs down.
Oh!
Yeah, I didn't want to do that.
2 episodes in a row that we disagree.
I know. It's weird. And I think I was just kind of like you said, where, are you wrapped up in it? Do you want to see what happens? And I have to say I was, I wasn't like, oh, I want to go do something else now. I can appreciate gore and I can appreciate all that, but I felt like it just didn't go anywhere. Like the story just didn't, and especially the ending, and I won't give it away, but like the ending there were so many questions at that point, like what type of movie are we watching now? Is this or that? For those reasons, it just I have to go ahead and give it a thumbs down, because it's not something I'll ever watch again. Now, even though I'm giving it a thumbs down, I will say there were some elements of the film that I did enjoy. I mean, I thought that overall the clown was a good part of this. I think he did a real good job portraying the clown. But then there were too many things in it where it just never really manifested into, finding out what this is about. Like you said, it's just like everything is just kind of, this is what it is, and you just take it or leave it. And I don't need a backstory really, because there's something I always go back to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There's no backstory to that. It just is, and it's great. But this one, to me, I think it just put too much out there, where there too many little, oh, let's kill this person, let's kill that person, and it just never fully became a storyline that I could follow and say well, at least this person here, we can figure this one out. It just seemed like it was all over the place. So for that reason, I have to give it a thumbs down.
You almost sound like you're on the on what's that show, Shark Tank or whatever. I was just waiting for you. And for that reason, I'm out.
There you have it.